Imagine a baby crying in a crib. Normally, someone eventually comes. A parent picks them up. A voice answers. A hand touches their face. And slowly, the baby learns something incredibly important. When I need someone, someone responds. Now imagine the opposite. You cry. Nobody comes. You cry again. Still nobody. Eventually. You stop crying. In Romanian institutions at the end of the 20th century, researchers encountered children growing up in environments where food and basic medical care could be provided. But consistent human attention was desperately limited. And what scientists discovered there would transform our understanding of what a developing brain actually needs. Because a baby doesn't just need calories. A baby needs people. The story begins decades earlier. In 1966, Romanian dictator Nicolae Ceaușescu introduced policies designed to dramatically increase the country's population. Abortion and contraception were heavily restricted. Birth rates initially surged. But many families were already struggling financially. Thousands of children eventually entered state institutions. By the time Ceaușescu's government collapsed in 1989, roughly 170,000 children were living in Romanian institutions. The images that emerged shocked the world. Rows of cribs. Too few caregivers. Children rocking themselves repeatedly. Babies receiving basic physical care but very little individual attention. And scientists faced a disturbing question. What happens to a human brain when almost nobody consistently responds to it? More importantly, could that damage be reversed? Around a decade later, researchers Charles Nelson, Nathan Fox, and Charles Zena launched what became known as the Bucharest Early Intervention Project. They studied 136 young children who had been living in institutions. Some remained in institutional care. Others were randomly assigned to a foster care program created specifically for the project. That random assignment made the study scientifically powerful. And ethically controversial. But first came the measurements. Researchers recorded children's brain activity. They tested cognitive development. They examined attachment. And the differences were alarming. The institutionalized children showed unusually low levels of electrical brain activity. Their average IQ scores were far below those of children being raised in typical families in Bucharest. But one behavior was especially strange. Some children would approach almost any adult. They might climb into a stranger's lap, hold a stranger's hand, or willingly leave with someone they barely knew. At first, that can look like extreme friendliness. Researchers interpreted it very differently. If every adult is equally safe, it may mean no particular adult has become your safe person. Then something remarkable happened. Children placed into foster families began improving. Their language developed. Their cognitive scores improved. And secure attachments became more common. The environment had changed. And their development began changing with it. But researchers discovered something even more important. Timing mattered. Children placed into families earlier generally showed stronger recovery in several developmental measures. For some measures of brain activity, children placed before roughly 24 months showed particularly striking improvements later in childhood. This helped strengthen an idea now central to developmental science. The young brain has sensitive periods. Windows when particular experiences can have unusually powerful effects on development. That does not mean a child's fate is permanently sealed on their second birthday. Human brains remain capable of change. But it does mean that early experience can leave unusually deep fingerprints. And those fingerprints weren't visible only in behavior. Later research found differences in brain structure associated with early institutional deprivation. Some aspects appeared more capable of recovery than others. Which leads to the most important lesson of the entire story. A child's brain isn't simply growing according to instructions hidden inside DNA. It's also responding to information. A face appearing. A voice answering. Someone smiling back. Being held. Being comforted. Thousands upon thousands of tiny interactions. Development happens partly through this constant back and forth between a child and other human beings. Remove enough of that interaction. And simply providing food, clothing, and medicine may not be enough. But that's exactly where this experiment becomes uncomfortable. Scientists didn't simply discover children living under different conditions. They randomly assigned children to different forms of care. Critics argued that researchers already had enough evidence to suspect institutional care was harmful. So was it ethical to leave some children in institutions for the sake of obtaining stronger scientific evidence? The researchers offered a different argument. Romania essentially had no foster care system available for these children when the project began. The project itself created and funded foster families. Researchers did not remove foster placements that otherwise existed, and if authorities arranged for a child to leave an institution, researchers did not prevent it. And that's the dilemma. Without randomization, critics could always argue that children sent to families simply started out healthier. With randomization, researchers could make much stronger conclusions about the effect of family-based care. But obtaining that evidence came with an ethical cost. And people still debate that cost. What isn't debatable is that the study had enormous influence. Romania later restricted institutional placement of very young children, and the findings became part of the international movement away from large institutions and toward family-based care. But maybe the most powerful lesson isn't about Romania at all. It's about what humans need. Think about your earliest years. You probably remember almost none of them. But before you could explain fear, someone could comfort you. Before you understood the word trust, you were already learning whether people could be trusted. Before you knew what love meant, your brain was collecting evidence about whether someone would show up when you needed them. Those moments disappeared from your memory. But they helped build the brain doing the remembering. And that's the haunting lesson these children helped reveal. Some of the most important experiences of your life happened before you were old enough to remember having them. So here's the question. How much of the person you are today was shaped during years you can't remember at all?